It's time for our weekly check-in with former NRL player and 2004 Premiership winner Braith Anasta, plus former St Kilda and North Melbourne AFL star Nick Dal Santo. Gentlemen, great to see you. Braith, huge news in NRL. Todd Greenberg, he's gone. What do you make of it? I think many had been speculating this was coming.
Yeah, Kieran, we only spoke about this on Saturday. And Tim actually asked me what I thought about Todd at the moment, and I said he was non-existent. He hadn't been in any of the meetings with the broadcasters. I think the writing was on the wall a long time ago when this coronavirus first hit and the financial position of the NRL was exposed. And then I think the straw that probably broke the camel's back was Channel 9's attack on the NRL only last week, which was directed at Todd Greenberg. As I mentioned just before, their inability to be able to negotiate with Channel 9 and also Foxtel with the new negotiations. Peter V'landys has taken a really great leadership role there and has been involved in all of the meetings and has been making all the tough decisions. Now, I didn't think that they would... Well, he has resigned, Todd, but I didn't think this would happen until all of this was over. There's some big decisions to be made. There's a lot of stress and duress at the moment to even get the players back on the field. I just thought that maybe they would leave it until a later date, but... In saying that, if we've got to start fresh, we're going to have a new competition. Maybe it starts from the top as well, and it's a clean slate. I'm not sure who they're going to have in the position from here on, although Andrew Abdu, the head of the commercial, will step in as of now. But still some big decisions to be made. It's a shock to me. It's not really a shock that he has resigned and he's on the way out, but just the timing of it. I thought that they would have waited until all of this was over.
Nick, this obviously not your forte, the NRL, but in terms of sport generally, and one of our biggest sporting codes in the NRL, this crisis has really stress-tested all of the sports, hasn't it?
Absolutely, and you're completely correct. Everybody is under a lot of pressure and a lot of stress at the moment, but this is something we've touched on for a few weeks now, is the NRL, and in some ways the competition between the NRL and the AFL, and how they're going to get through this particular, couple of months. Now, I think the NRL were really brave going back a couple of weeks to put a definitive date on when the NRL would come back. And as I've said now for multiple weeks, the AFL, Gil McLachlan and people before him have never been pressured into doing anything that they haven't wanted to do, even against huge public scrutiny, even against huge public uproar and people disagreeing with the way that they go about it. They govern themselves. But I sit here on the AFL side, and I've been really happy and in some ways proud by the way that they've handled this situation. It's extremely difficult. There's a lot of agendas that need to be taken into account. So I'm happy with what Gil and the powers at the AFL have done to this point. And in some ways, Braith, I must be honest, just as a sports lover and an NRL fan in a small way, I feel sad for where the NRL are at right now. And I guess what's happened, and ultimately someone loses their job because of it.
It is a challenge. It's going to be a big challenge as they try and get restarted within the next month or two. Braith, is that looking less likely given the events of today or more likely? What's your take on that?
No, I think they're still on track. I don't think it'll change that. First, I will say, but I do think Todd tried his hardest. He's a really good guy, and I feel for him and his family at the moment. So it is tough times for a lot of people, and and for him, I've always got along with him, and I've always thought he's tried his hardest and did a really good job. But unfortunately, this crisis, this pandemic, has brought down the best of them, and he is one of them. Listen, I don't think it changes anything in terms of where the game is heading and the direction that it's on, path that it's on at the moment. I actually think that if anything, V'landys has taken a really strong stance here. He's named a date. He's talking to federal and state governments at the moment. Anastasia Palisade up in Queensland has relaxed a little bit on her comments to the media over the past couple of days. I think rugby league's definitely on track. I spoke on Saturday on Sky News about the New Zealand Warriors and their movements, and that'll be a real indication of where the game is at if they do head over to Sydney, and that is about to happen in the next couple of days. And so, even though Todd is gone, I don't think it changes the path of which the NRL are on and the timing of which they want to get back on that field. I think they're very much looking forward to that date, and they're on track.
Nick, is there any talk of when the AFL might get back on the pitch? I know, as you've indicated today, they've got a different approach and more cautious approach, but is there any timeline being talked about behind the scenes?
We're waiting, nothing definitive, and everybody has sources in special places that you sort of allude to. And the whispers are at this stage that an announcement will be made in the next week or so for a more definitive opportunity. First of all, for the players to come back to training, and then they'll need 3 to 4 weeks of a mini pre-season of being about 1 month for them to be able to play AFL football again. So I just, listening to Braith, and I agree with him, it is great that you feel like there is light at the end of the tunnel for sports fans, but to say exactly when that is for the AFL players, it's just too hard to say right now. If I was to have a guess, I'm still saying we're 2.5 months away from having AFL back on our TV screens for, well, unfortunately people can't go and watch, but to be able to watch or listen. And I think where we sit right now, that's about as good as we can really hope for.